Number 10. Rogue. Rogue wasn't so much a major love interest for Deadpool, but she definitely had a fun, brief fling during time apart from her usual main squeeze, Gambit. Rogue and Wade shared a juicy kiss, and because of her powers, she briefly made Wade handsome once more and took away his powers for a short time following said kiss. This actually also made Rogue's skin look like Wade's when he has his powers set. It was a brief moment in Uncanny Avengers issue 22, but their short flirtation was pretty cute, I gotta say. Initially, Wade thought he would never be good enough for Rogue and implied that she only probably liked him because she didn't know him very well. And she responded by kissing him again, this time probing his mind a little bit, but confirming that his thoughts didn't really disturb her and that she still liked him. I also just love that cute moment. He's like, I don't know, I'm pretty wild. And then she kisses him and she's like, yeah, but I'm a little shocked, but mostly I'm fine. I'm Rogue. I've seen some stuff. Number 9. Outlaw. Outlaw is Inez Temple, a mutant mercenary and sometimes bodyguard. She has interacted with Deadpool a few times in the comics. After her apartment was destroyed in a fight between the Punisher and Deadpool when Wade had come calling for her help, he felt pretty bad about it and worked hard to buy her a new one as an apology. Outlaw realized that Deadpool really cared for her and the two ended up sleeping together. They would later also be briefly married, but it wouldn't end up working out. Outlaw's super strength ended up being a bit too much for Deadpool during those moments of passion, and so their marriage was annulled shortly thereafter. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want another Deadpool love interest list, he's been with a lot of people, so I'm pretty sure I could do that. Be sure to let us know you want more Deadpool love interest by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Captain America. While their love might not be romantic in nature most of the time, Captain America is definitely a character that Wade loves to bits. I say most of the time, but definitely all of the time. I don't think they've ever been in a romantic relationship, but Deadpool definitely still loves Captain America. In fact, Deadpool loved Cap so much that even when he had been replaced with a Hydra sleeper agent, Deadpool still followed him pretty much without question, which didn't work out so great for Deadpool, sadly. The real Captain America had been replaced by a Hydra sleeper agent, who was created by a sentient version of the Cosmic Cube named Kobuk, who altered reality by changing Cap's allegiance, believing it was the right thing to do at that time. As such, Steve Rogers would go on to conquer America and become Hydra Supreme. Or that version of Steve Rogers anyways. It was only when it was too late that Deadpool realized the error of his ways. His love of Captain America had blinded him and really led him astray that time, and left him so hurt afterwards that he ended up drowning himself in mind wipe drugs, completely wiping his mind of many of his own past adventures. Sometimes love hurts. Number 7. Carmelita Camacho. Carmelita Camacho and Deadpool only had a very brief romance that was really kind of like a one-night stand. Carmelita and Deadpool both ended up captured together by the White Man, who the heroes for hire, who were accompanied by Deadpool at the time, had been hired to stop. Believing that these could be her last moments, Carmelita decided to go out with love and made love to Deadpool. However, later when Deadpool took off his mask once White Man was defeated, Carmelita ran from him in terror because, you know, this thing. It turns out, however, this brief time of passion resulted in Carmelita becoming pregnant. She gave birth to Deadpool's daughter, Eleanor Camacho. Later on, Carmelita would end up dead after being kidnapped by the villain the Butler as payback. Eleanor, however, lives on, and Deadpool does his best to be a good dad to her when he can, often fighting to keep her safe from his own enemies. But also, Eleanor might be someone super powerful in the future, so hopefully we get to see more of Eleanor. She's super cool. Number 6. Siren. Siren and Deadpool were actually for a time both romantically interested somewhat in the other. They had a brief romance, but would also at times come back together in the comics. Siren is Teresa Cassidy, the daughter of Sean Cassidy, aka Banshee. When Siren found herself depowered, Deadpool was the one who attempted to return her power to her. However, his methods were somewhat questionable. He kidnapped Wolverine and used his healing factor to help restore Siren's sonic vocal powers. It worked, but Wolverine wasn't very happy by the end of that process. And while Siren was grateful to Deadpool for his help, she also didn't agree with his method. She was like, maybe don't, capture Wolverine to do that next time. The two have remained friends in the comics and have been known to be friends with benefits at times. Number 5. Lady Death. That's right, at one point Deadpool ends up falling in love with Lady Death, probably one of the women who would really be the hardest for him to end up with, considering his powerful healing factor. But also, as someone who can't die, it would make sense that the allure of Lady Death would sufficiently seduce him. The really wild thing is that Lady Death was also like super into Deadpool and wanted to be with him romantically. Unfortunately, Thanos became quite jealous of Deadpool's relationship with his ultimate crush. In order to keep the two apart, Thanos cursed Deadpool with immortality. So now not only did Deadpool have an impossibly high healing factor, which generally made him dying highly improbable, but now, with immortality, it was virtually impossible for Deadpool to perish. Eventually, Deadpool would regain his mortality and would also at one point use his connection to Death to convince her to restore the concept of mortality to the world after it had been taken away. Number 4. Copycat. Well, you might think you know Vanessa from the Deadpool movies. In the comics, Vanessa Carlyle is quite a bit different than her cinematic counterpart. She is the mutant mercenary known as Copycat. In the comics, her mutant power allows her to perfectly replicate the appearance, personality, and even DNA of any other humanoid being. Like in the movies, for a brief time she and Wade were in love and happy together. And like in the movies, Wade left Vanessa when he learned he had cancer. The two, however, would tragically be reunited while on opposite sides of a conflict. Vanessa would become a mercenary and was tasked with infiltrating and killing the X-Force while impersonating Domino. When she couldn't bring herself to follow through with the hit though, Deadpool was sent to make sure that she did. She decided to side with the X-Force and fought against Deadpool. In the end, the two would end up back together, but ultimately Deadpool would be hired to kill Copycat later on. When he couldn't bring himself to follow through with that, other agents were sent in to make sure Copycat died. Sabretooth delivered the killing blow, and she died, tragically, in Deadpool's arms. Or so it would seem. She'd later show up alive and well without explanation in the comics, still seemingly possessing her mutant powers somehow. Who knows what happened? I don't know if we know that yet, but she's alive again, and I'm sure one day we'll find out what happened. Number 3. Shiklah. Shiklah was actually the wife of Deadpool for a time. He was hired to bring her to Dracula, who she was actually supposed to marry, but along the way, she fell in love with Deadpool. Sort of like a weird and maybe grosser version of Shrek, perhaps? Not like Deadpool's a grosser version of Shrek? Like that whole narrative sounds like a maybe grosser version of Shrek. The two would end up deciding to stay together and get married. It was fun for a while, but eventually Shiklah became resentful of the world above. She was the ruler of the monsters, and as such lived in the underworld. Deadpool's long absences from her only intensified her feelings of resentment, and eventually she launched an attack on the surface world. Deadpool ended up joining up with Dracula to stop her, and after she was defeated, Dracula proposed marriage to Shiklah, who agreed, thereby stealing her right back from Deadpool and nullifying Wade and Shiklah's marriage. Number 2. Vanessa Carlyle. Vanessa is the partner of Deadpool in the cinematic Deadpool universe, which might also end up being the MCU eventually. Or it might be the MCU now, I'm not sure. After all, we did see Deadpool and Korg do a reaction video together for free, guys, so Deadpool is at least part of the MC YouTube verse now. Vanessa Carlyle, like Wade, also seemed to grow up having a hard life. The two actually bond over their tragic childhoods and traumatic life experiences, often trying to one-up each other in regards to who had it worse growing up. A competition really no one wins in the end. Wade at first paid Vanessa for her time, but instead of paying to sleep with her, the service she typically charged for, he used the time he'd bought to take her out on a date instead. The two ended up falling in love and eventually would become engaged as their relationship continued to blossom. Even after Wade was diagnosed with cancer and left her to try and heal in secret, but ended up instead being experimented on and ultimately becoming the anti-hero Deadpool, Vanessa still wanted to be with him, which is pretty understanding. Though of course she was mad that he had left her. In Deadpool 2, Vanessa is killed at the beginning of the movie, but ends up being saved at the end by Deadpool, who fixes and uses Cable's time travel device so that he can go back and save her. Yay! So she only kind of got fridged, but not full fridged, so yay! Number 1. Elsa Bloodstone. Probably one of his more recent romantic interests has been Elsa Bloodstone. In the comics, she teamed up with him in a recent series where he became the King of Staten Island, and the king of monsters. Despite Wade doubting his own capability to be a good king, ELSA believes in him. This probably is a big reason why Deadpool found himself developing feelings for Elsa Bloodstone. He sacrificed himself to save her when it was revealed that her Bloodstone had become corrupted and was basically killing her. Deadpool took her Bloodstone in order to free Elsa and save her life. Through taking it, Wade also helped to reverse the corruption so that when Elsa came back to look for him following a battle with the Bone Beast Queen, she was able to take back the Bloodstone once more without having to fear for her own life. As such, Elsa finished off the Queen, retrieving Deadpool and confessing her own feelings for him, giving him a big kiss. When he seemingly awoke, revealing that he wasn't dead yet, she then decided to stay with Deadpool while he regenerated the rest of his body, as at that time all that was left of him was a disembodied head. A very gross disembodied head. And I love that Elsa was like, I don't care. You're gross, but it's fine. I know monsters. I'm cool.
Coming in at number 10, we have a bit of an honorable mention with Maya Hansen from the MCU film Iron Man 3. A genetic scientist who helped create the Extremis virus, Maya doesn't really get a lot to do in the actual movie we got to see, mainly being a former fling of Tony's who is helping the main villain, tries to have a change of heart, but then gets awkwardly killed for her efforts by Aldrich Killian. In the original script of the movie, however, Maya was initially intended to be the main villain and the mastermind behind Extremis, a former flame of Tony Stark's that had developed the technology specifically to destroy him. And while the actual movie cut down her role considerably and changed her character's fate, she still gets an honorable mention for the villainous love interest she almost was. Coming in at number 9, we have Joanna Nevena, the very first fiancée of Tony Stark. Revealed in a flashback storyline during the 1980s, Joanna was a young woman engaged to Tony Stark when he first began to act as the superhero Iron Man. Unaware of his secret double life, Joanna at first was pushed away by Tony's odd behavior and assumed him to be cheating, until he finally told her the truth about his identity as Iron Man. And while for a time Joanna would encourage Tony to keep being a hero, she would eventually come to realize that he couldn't be both a superhero and a good husband to her, and so eventually broke off their engagement and hasn't been mentioned in the Marvel Universe ever since. Coming in at number 8, we have Kathy Dare. Tony's had his fair share of bad relationships over the years, but few have ended as poorly as his romance with Kathleen Dare, a woman who took Tony's playboy ways incredibly personally and would eventually get back at Tony by shooting him in the chest. Paralyzed from this attack and suffering from severe nerve damage, Tony decided to stop his own heart so that he'd be placed into cryostasis until a solution could be found to his nerve damage. Unfortunately, Tony didn't tell many people what his plan was, causing many of his friends to believe he had died for good, and with Kathy becoming extremely grief-stricken after thinking she had killed her ex-boyfriend in a pretty dark ending to a pretty dark storyline. Coming in at number 7, we have the villainous Madame Masque. Daughter of another Iron Man villain known as Count Nefaria, Masque first met Tony Stark while undercover at Stark Industries under the name of Chrissy Longfellow. Becoming so romantically involved that they purchased a penthouse apartment together, things seemed great for Tony and Chrissy until her true identity was finally revealed and Iron Man accidentally destroyed the machine that was keeping her father alive, even if he would later reappear down the road. Furious at this turn of events, Madame Masque embraced her true scarred visage and left Tony for good, committing herself to becoming a criminal mastermind and becoming yet another member of Iron Man's Rogues Gallery. Coming in at number 6, we have Indris Mumji. Before he was one of the most beloved superheroes on the planet due to the popularity of the Iron Man movies, one of the most well-known traits of Tony Stark that has since been dropped is the character's struggles with being an alcoholic, and Indris is a character directly connected to that major storyline. Hired by the villainous Obadiah Stane, Indris posed as a bystander rescued by Iron Man and seduced Tony using pheromone chemicals along with her natural charms. Indris was ruthless and continually pushed Tony to relying on alcohol, and then eventually broke his heart at Stane's command, leaving Tony Stark at rock bottom and his drinking problems worse than ever, making this romance one of pure tragedy. Coming in at number 5, we have Bethany Cave. Another woman who met Tony during his heavy drinking phase, Bethany was assigned to Tony Stark's security team shortly after the death of her husband, and eventually found some comfort in the invincible Iron Man's arms. While Tony's drinking was a major issue in their relationship for a while, she would be an essential part in the process of helping him sober up. Unfortunately, their romance was not meant to last, as Bethany would eventually discover her husband was secretly alive, and after rescuing him from his circumstances, left Tony to be with the man she was meant to be with. Better luck next time, Stark. Coming in at number 4, we have Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. Dating a coworker always comes with complications, and both Iron Man and the Wasp found out that lesson the hard way. After her marriage to Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, fell apart, Janet found herself rebounding with Tony Stark, while being unaware that he was actually Iron Man, aka the co-founder of the Avengers team along with her and Hank. Even Captain America tried to warn Tony that their relationship was doomed for disaster, but it took Janet finding out for herself that Iron Man and Tony Stark are one and the same to put an end to their romance, even if they'd share a few more flirty moments in the future once she was properly divorced from Hank Pym. Coming in at number 3, we have Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow. If I had a nickel for every time Tony Stark was romanced by an undercover agent within his own company, we'd probably have more nickels than you'd expect. Initially falling for Natasha while she was still a spy for the Russian government, their romance initially ended once Tony found out about the whole secret agent for an enemy power thing. However, the two were surprised to find their destinies intertwined when they both were early members of the Avengers team, now fighting for the same side. And while they initially seemed ready to try their romance again, the two have since decided to remain friends and allies, and determined the fate of the planet is probably more important than their office flirting. Coming in at number 2, we have Jennifer Walters, aka the Incredible She-Hulk. Most of the relationships I've listed in this video have either ended tragically or at the very least caused a lot of drama in Tony's life. That said, it's a nice change of pace that Tony was able to enjoy a more fun and casual relationship with someone who viewed things the same way that he did, which is exactly why Iron Man and She-Hulk made such a great pair. Never afraid to call Tony out for the double standard of how their casual love lives were talked about, Jennifer and Tony had great chemistry, and when it comes to the comic books, might be my favorite pairing for Iron Man. But if you really pushed me on my favorite Iron Man romance overall, well, coming in at our top spot, we have Pepper Potts from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Pepper is a great character in the Marvel comics as well, but my favorite interpretation of this duo's relationship has to be between Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark and Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts. Capable of running Stark Industries while Tony is saving the world and battling his own inner demons, Pepper is the counterbalance Tony needs to stop himself from going overboard. And watching their arc of their relationship over the course of the entire MCU is one of the best running plot threads throughout the entire Infinity Saga. And who knows, there might not even be an MCU if the dynamic between Tony and Pepper wasn't so intriguing in the very first movie. And for that reason, I've got to say that she's the very best.
Number 10, Hawkeye. Well, some may ship these two, and they have had some flirty moments in the Matt Fraction and David Aja Hawkeye series. They've never really been a thing. Still, that doesn't prevent others from dreaming, and you cannot deny that these two characters definitely have chemistry. Of course, their chemistry likely comes from the fact they are just such great friends. In fact, Clint considers Kate to be his best friend. Sorry, Natasha. At one point, Hawkeye and Hawkeye seemingly share a kiss in the 2016 Hawkeye series in issue number 14. At least, that's what the cover teased. In reality, this kiss wasn't between Clint and Kate at all, but rather Clint and Madame Masque, who was in a Kate Bishop clone body at the time. Oh, comics. Despite even the flirty moments that the two shared in the 2012 Hawkeye series, in the letters column it was more implied that there was no intention for there to be anything romantic between these two, and that Kate was not pining for Clint or anything like that, but simply saw him as her mentor, her friend, and someone who she therefore cared very deeply for. Which meant that yes, he could say mean things to her that would hurt and affect her. There's a whole point where he's basically like, look, I don't want to sleep with you, and people were like, oh my goodness, was Kate like hurt by that? Because does she want to sleep with Clint? I don't know how I feel about that. And they were like, I don't think so. Stephen Wacker, who was the assistant editor, I believe, on that book at the time, was like, yeah, that's not what I saw. I saw more of just her being like, ouch, like that's kind of mean to say. That hurts. Even though I don't want to sleep with you. I think it would be weird. I don't ship it. But if you ship it, that's okay. Number 9, Jack. Jack was Kate's one-night stand who appears in the 2016 all-new Hawkeye series in issue number 3. The night before, at the end of issue number 2, Kate and her friend and fellow superhero America Chavez decided to go out dancing as part of an attempt to cheer up Kate and help her forget about Clint after the pair of Hawkeyes had a falling out. Jack is the very nice man that she meets on her night out dancing with America. The two apparently hit it off and end up going back to Kate's apartment. The next morning, Jack is revealed to be a super sweetheart who wants to spend the day with his new paramour and also wakes Kate up with a coffee that he went out to get for her after waking up early and being unable to fall back asleep. What a cutie! Unfortunately for Jack, Kate isn't really in a place to be in a relationship right now, so she turns down Jack's offer. Honestly, I think Kate missed out here. Jack also happens to be wearing a lot of purple, which I think is a design signal that they too could have been just perfect for one another. Oh well. Kate had stuff she needed to work out, and at least she was upfront about that. Although America does later comment that Kate's aversion to attachments is making her sound a lot like the wrong Hawkeye, if you catch her drift. I gotta say, I agree. Being like, I can't have attachments, I'm a hero. It's a very Clint Barton thing to say, I feel like. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Kate Bishop lists, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Although I don't know if we could do 10 more love interests, because honestly, finding these 10 was pretty tricky, to be honest. Number 8, Miles Morales. In the reality of 1610, Kate Bishop is quite different from her 616 counterpart. Instead of becoming Hawkeye, she is just plain old Katie Bishop. Here she ends up becoming the girlfriend of superhero Spider-Man, aka Miles Morales. In fact, Miles likes her and trusts her so much that he decides to reveal the truth of his secret identity to her. However, this doesn't work out great for him as Katie's parents are actually Hydra agents. Uh-oh. Katie ends up telling them what was revealed to her, and when Miles is invited over, they drug and kidnap him, taking him to a place where he is tormented and experimented on. Eventually, Miles escapes their clutches and is saved by the young Ultimates. Despite Katie feeling bad about what happened, their relationship does not survive her ultimate betrayal. Still, for a while, Miles was a love interest of the ultimate version of Catherine Bishop. Number 7, America Chavez. Just as Clint isn't really a romantic partner of Kate's, the same could be suggested when it comes to a relationship with America, fellow hero and friend. In fact, while Clint thinks of Kate as his best friend, I'd say that Kate has a few best friends personally, including Clint, Cassie Lang aka Stature, and America Chavez. America tends to be one of the first people that Kate calls when she needs advice or help, whether it be personal or professional, and it goes the same way for America. She usually calls Kate. The two ended up getting to know one another when America got tangled up in the Young Avengers adventures. Since the time they started working together, they have become close friends who both hold a lot of respect for one another. Although Kate is very much straight and America is very much gay, these two still have great chemistry, and if Kate ever did end up wanting to explore her sexuality, I could see America being a great partner for her personally. Still, these two have never been together romantically in the comics, and like Kate and Clint, this is pretty much purely fanship. Possibly my fanship. I really like America and Kate together. Perhaps this is even more fanship too than Hawkeye and Hawkeye, as the two don't really have flirty moments together in the comics, just a strong friendship and bond, and a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun together. But hey, Kate hasn't been around that long, so I needed some more love interest to flush out this list. And I love these two together, so yeah, this is my fanship. Hopefully that's cool with you. Let me know if you also would ship America and Kate if they decided to be a thing. Number 6, Clown. The Clown is Kazimierz Kazimierczak, but people just call him Kazi for short. He was an assassin hired to eliminate Clint Barton's Hawkeye for the Tracksuit Dracula gang, and other interested parties. A lot of interested parties. A lot of people wanted Clint dead. While this might seem like a strange person for Kate Bishop's Hawkeye to get romantic with, she didn't really know who he was at the time. Both Kazi and Kate were at the same party and ended up talking, enjoying one another's company, and then this led to a little bit of flirting at the end. Though Kate never knew that Kazi was actually an assassin who was employed to take out her partner and friend Clint. The two ended up merely sharing a kiss after talking with one another all night until the party they were both at ended. I will say I also noticed in the Hawkeye series when the Clown's MCU counterpart and Kate's MCU counterpart seemed to share a lingering look as Kazi ran away from Kate. I was the only one I feel like that was watching that was like, oh, is it gonna be be a thing? Is there gonna be a thing? There was no romance, but they did have a look. They did have a look. Number 5, Executioner. Not the Executioner that you know from Thor, Scourge, to be clear, but rather Daniel Dubois. Daniel is the son of the villain Princess Python. Kate attempted to mentor Daniel, and the two, who go to school together, attended a charity event as one another's date. However, when the Young Avengers seemingly show up on the scene with a supposed Hawkeye complimenting Kate's dress, Daniel began to wonder if Kate Bishop really was Hawkeye as he suspected. In truth, this other version of Hawkeye was not who they appeared to be, and Kate was the real Kate Bishop Hawkeye, obviously. Executioner is a member of the Young Masters of Evil and is later seen among the ranks of the Masters of Evil, just like Kate growing up, just like the Young Avengers, and they all got Avengers membership as well. I'm assuming they all have little Avengers membership cards. Think if you're on the Avengers, you get a membership card. Number 4, Fuse. Fuse is Johnny Watts, who ended up becoming one of Kate's partners and friends when she started Hawk Investigations. As they worked together and spent more time together, he began to develop feelings for Kate. Things got kinda weird when Madame Masque and a clone body of Kate ended up taking things to a more physical and intimate level with Johnny. However, later on, Kate did admit that she had feelings for Johnny, and likewise, he for her. Eventually, Johnny also revealed that he had superpowers when he was forced to use them to save Kate's life. He would take up the name of Fuse and end up joining Kate when she decided to go help out the West Coast Avengers. However, in her latest series, Hawkeye Kate Bishop, it was revealed that the two decided to break off their romance when Kate decided to head back to New York. Number 3, Speed. Tommy Shepard might currently be with Prodigy in the comics, but he is one of my sweet bye babes, and he's also had a thing with Kate in the past as well. In fact, during their time together on the Young Avengers, the attraction between the two even created some tension, as Kate found herself stuck between Speed and Patriot in a sort of love triangle. Who's she gonna be with? At one point, Speed ended up being her kiss on New Year's Eve when the team celebrated the new year together. There are also alternate realities where these two have even ended up married, although it seems more than likely currently that Prodigy could end up being Speed's endgame, at least in my opinion. Regardless, Kate and Tommy definitely have a strong connection to one another and still remain friends to this day, who care about one another a lot and share a strong bond due to their time together on the Young Avengers team. Number 2, Patriot. Patriot has been an on and off romantic interest of Kate's. He is Elijah Bradley, or Eli Bradley, grandson of Isaiah Bradley, who, yes, we met in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Disney Plus series in the MCU. Eli initially had super soldier-like powers, which he got through using the mutant hormone growth drug, much to the disappointment of his teammates on the Young Avengers. When they found out about this, they were all pretty worried about him, Kate included. In the end, however, Eli would gain permanent super soldier-like powers after receiving a blood transfusion from his grandfather, who himself was one of the first super soldiers to have been created when the US government and military attempted to recreate Dr. Erskine's formula. Patriot and Hawkeye went on a few awkward dates and shared a kiss when they both found themselves trapped under rubble during Siege. Number 1, Novar. Honestly, this was a hard one to pick a number 1 for. I feel like it's a toss-up between the top few spots here, but I went with Novar, so take it or leave it. You let me know what you think about that ranking. Novar, or Marvel Boy, is probably one of the greatest, or at least most prominent loves of Kate's life. The two hooked up and then decided to begin dating, but it didn't end up lasting, as Novar revealed that although he really liked Kate, he would leave her for his ex if he was given a chance to be with her again. Not a great look. He even tried to do so, but then it turned out that that version of his ex, Oubliette, was merely an illusion and not the real one. Kate, of course, did not like learning this and decided to permanently break things off, even when Novar tried to get back together with her. She needed someone who was serious about her and their relationship, someone who would be committed to her and for whom she wouldn't just be a placeholder. I get it, girl. Still, this hasn't stopped the two from ending up together in alternate realities, and despite how their relationship ended, Kate and Novar have still managed to stay friends.
Number 10, DEADSHOT. Many changes came over at DC when the New 52 era began in 2011/2012. A lot of things got darker, and that included Harley's relationship with the Joker, which was already pretty dark. However, the Harley initially presented in the New 52 is extremely unstable, homicidal, and devoted to the Joker who tortured her. However, the Joker would vanish for a time after cutting off his own face. Harley would find herself on the Suicide Squad, where she would take up with fellow team member DEADSHOT, and the relationship would be hot and heavy, and the two's madness seemingly complemented each other. You know, until she put the Joker's face on his face, and well, that was kind of a no-go. The relationship was much less squickly handled in the animated movie Batman: Assault on Arkham. Number 9. Red Tool. Since being brought into comics, Harley has pretty consistently had her own solo series, which has brought her more awareness amongst fans, which has led to her being featured in many different types of fandom, such as shipping. One big fan favorite pairing for her is with Deadpool. It's known as Harley Pool. Many felt their types of zany just matched and that it would be fun. This was played with in DC canon with the introduction of Red Tool, who is basically Deadpool, or as close as we can get without someone having to be sued. Red Tool would be obsessed with Harley and absolutely devoted to her, while she was more lukewarm, but would use his affection to her advantage. The two would eventually develop a friendly relationship. He worked well enough, even if you weren't aware of where he sprung from. He could stand on his own. Number 8. Wonder Woman. Harley's Little Black Book was a mini-series of small Harley adventures, snippets / team-ups between her and other heroes, and there was a flirtatious element to most of these, which of course included her team-up with Wonder Woman. Harley is established in this tale as having a massive crush on her, as well as admiration for her. She even has like a little shrine. These feelings are not exactly reciprocated. Their team-up dynamic would be Harley being like, "This looks like the start of a beautiful friendship. Also, I love you." With Wonder Woman being more like, "Thank you next," or "No thank you." Over time, like many DC heroes, Wonder Woman has been shown to mellow towards Harley. Number 7. Lobo. Harley's Little Black Book strikes again, seeing her teaming up with the main man himself, Lobo. Harley is in no way put off by all the hyper macho tude that Lobo's putting out there, and in fact the two's team up for the most part is pretty smooth, and he himself appreciates her more forward advances. Sometimes it's just nice to know where you stand. The two have a fling, or tryst as many outlets insisted on calling it. It's never sad to hear old words. This one was a fun one and done, but did lead to some to have fan theories like, is Harley the mother of Lobo's daughter? Ask 2019. Number 6. Rick Flag. Man, the Suicide Squad. Everybody hooking up. You've got to read the handbook. That's not good for the overall team dynamics. The rebirth era of Harley and even the latter half of the New 52 saw the character mellowing and a tonal shift from the dark instability into a more fun, manic pixie dream girl variety of instability. The rebirth era would see her hooking up with Rick Flag. Since leaving the Joker, Harley's promiscuity has become one of her defining traits. She's a flirt and seemingly interested in most people, and many of them are willing to reciprocate. Rick Flag's a bit more straight-laced than her normal type, but variety is the spice of life. Wonder how DEADSHOT felt about that. Not because of her, because of Rick. Read the Ostrander run, I'm telling you. Number 5. Nightwing. Age in comics is a funny thing. It vacillates, so even as Nightwing ages, many of the people around him don't, which is part of how you end up with a hookup like this. It's happened in comic pages, Grayson, where later Harley would even be able to identify him by kiss, because it's that distinct. However, a bigger and for some more controversial moment came with Batman Harley Quinn the animated movie, which saw Harley Quinn tying Nightwing down to a bed and having her way with him, which the movie is quick to indicate he's into, well, because certain areas are standing to attention. Okay, we still monetized? Okay, good. For some, this was an out of left field moment with questionable implications. For others, a bit of fun. For some, a new possibility of a pairing that hadn't been fully contemplated before. Number 4, Bruce Wayne. Harley's actually been on a date with Bruce Wayne, also depending on how you play the Batman Telltale game, Flirtation City. Harley in the New 52 verse is attracted to Bruce Wayne, just here and there, such as little lines in movies, like in Birds of Prey where she names one of her hyenas after him. If that's not true love, I don't know what is. We get a full date in Harley Quinn Valentine's Special number 1, which for some fans was critical in cementing the fact that Harley doesn't know that Batman and Bruce Wayne are one and the same, which was a theory floating around with some, especially when she notes his jaw early on in Batman the Animated Series. Number 3, Batman. Hey, if she doesn't know who he is, he counts as two separate people. Harley is drawn to the persona of the Bat as well. I mean, makes sense, she does tend to be drawn to danger and excitement. There's also something appealing about it to fans too. He's essentially the antithesis of the Joker, and I mean, the Joker's head would explode. Who would he be jealous of? Well, that's up to you. It's your choice. Harley and Batman have had a flirtation since the animated series. She kisses him twice in Harley's Holiday after he's particularly sweet to her. And Batman has a soft spot for her. Not quite a pity spot, but a bit of understanding. Since then, it's appeared in main canon, in Elseworlds, just everywhere. Batquin. Some people wish it was a thing. Number 2, the Joker. I know, the Joker at number 2, the scandal. This is the love interest who started it all. Harley would literally not exist were it not for the Joker. He is her starting point. She has of course become firmly established and become nuanced, though some of that has been stripped back in favor of a more traditional power fantasy. This couple is iconic and dark and twisted, which doesn't have to be something to be afraid of or shy away from, though some do for fear of glamorization or romanticization. But something can be explored and not glorified, and really no matter what you do, you can't control how someone is going to view something. At this point, Harley has moved on from her puddin', and he from her, but it was still an illuminating chapter in her character, and a strong, necessary one. Every character starts somewhere. Number 1. Poison Ivy. Now, Poison Ivy and Harley's relationship has actually been hinted at for quite some time, but you know, the 90s, gotta keep some things subtext. I mean, who doesn't hang out with their friends without pants? That's what friendship is all about. Over time, these two's relationship would become more and more explicit, and also gain some cred with fans as being a less toxic one than her and the Joker, and B, also be more important for representation. It has gone through many phases: marriage in alternate universes, or on again off again in the main verse. Surprisingly thoughtful in her animated show, not because of anything particular, but just the overall comedic tone that show has. Sometimes it gets pretty deep. For some, this is their endgame couple, but with Harley on the prowl, that remains to be seen.